The Banter Guy. Hello everyone, it is the Banter Guy here, and welcome to my top 10 bosses of Dark Souls. At number 10 we have the Moonlight Butterfly, and I know this may be a bit of an odd choice to appear on this list, but this is more for a personal thing, is when I was first playing Dark Souls, I always felt that the pacing was quite rushed in the boss fights, and so when I came upon the Moonlight Butterfly, I thought, well, this is a refreshing change of pace, plus it's the first boss in the game that really forces that mentality of dodge or die, and as opposed to many of the other early game bosses that you can just tank through, they don't really do that very much. So for number 10, Moonlight Butterfly, and as you can see, some of the attacks vary from really cool laser attacks to more bombarding magic attacks, but overall, I really like this boss, so that's where it goes. Number 10, Moonlight Butterfly. At number 9 we have the Bell Gargoyles. Now, the reason I put them at number 9 not higher is because the Bell Gargoyles, while they are certainly visually appealing, they're a spectacle just to look at, and they have a good variety of attacks ranging from their halberd to their tail in the case of the first one that you see, and breathing fire from flight or on the ground, covering the entire arena. Marvellous spectacle to watch, very, very visually and graphically appealing. However, they're not very difficult, and therefore I cannot put them any higher on the list because Dark Souls is first and foremost about difficulty, as much as people might say otherwise. Its story is compelling enough, but the difficulty in these guys just doesn't warrant them going any higher. And while they are still a very fun boss, and I do enjoy them when I get to them, and trounce them every time, as I said, is because they're not very difficult, but still they're worthy of a place on this list. So, number 9, Bell Gargoyles.
Heretic. First thou offendeth the Godmother, and now thou see fit to trample upon the tomb of the great Lord. I am the dark sun, Gwyndolin. Let the atonement for thy felonies commence.
At number 8 we have the Dark Sun Gwyndolin, and the reason I decided to put him on this list at all was because his arena is, as far as I know, very unique in that there is no other Souls game boss that features a pretty much never-ending hallway from your perspective, and as you go down it, chasing after Gwyndolin, you have to deal with a plethora of various attacks, forcing you to use a very sort of unique skill base that you wouldn't necessarily use for any other boss, and considering he is pretty much the definition of glass cannon, I see no reason to not include such a powerful yet weak boss on this list. So at number 8 we have the Dark Sun Gwyndolin. At number 7 we have the Great Grey Wolf Sith. Now, in all honesty, there's a number of reasons why I put him on this list, but the chief among them is the fact that he is relevant to the story relating to Artorias in so many ways, but chiefly is that he is guarding the ring that let Artorias traverse the Abyss that you must get to traverse the Abyss to fight the Four Kings. Now, there's a very simple reason why he's on this list, and it's for the emotional weight of the fight, because it's not really about difficulty, it's all about the emotional state that the player and Sif are both in, not wanting to do this, but having to do it regardless. So for that, it's a very emotional fight, and well worth a place on this list. But aside from that, just for the sheer coolness factor of fighting a giant wolf wielding a magical sword, awesome. Number 7, Great Grey Wolf Sif. At number 6 we have the Chaos Witch Quelaag. Now, as we all know, this is the point in the game, early game anyway, where you're really like, wow, this is a really punishing game, and she is the boss that teaches you that lesson. And this is why she's on this list, because mainly of her difficulty, of attacks like her Shockwave, which can insta-kill you, and of a whole plethora of her very, well, some would call unfair, I'd call difficult attacks. So yeah, she is definitely worthy, just of her difficulty, of a place on this list. At number 6, Chaos Witch Quelaag. At number 5, we have Gwyn, the Lord of Cinder. Now there are a couple of things I've got to go over before I fully commit him to this list, because first off, as you can see, he can be parried. Now the problem with that is that it makes his actual difficulty level drop way down, almost bordering on gargoyle difficulty at that point, because his parrying window is huge, but that's not the reason I put him on this list. It's again the heavy emotional weight and the story relevance. He's given everything he had to keep his age going, but at the end of it, all he's ended up is burning out into a hollow shell of his former self, and the fact that it's the end of the game means you are finally ridding Lordran of a corrupted, failing age. But still, he is worth a place on the list. Number 5, Gwyn, Lord of Cinder. At number 4, we have the Four Kings of New Londo. Now, this boss is kind of, in terms of why it's on the list, it's for a personal reason, yet again. And the main reason is because it's just the satisfaction of wailing on them time after time, and I always find myself enjoying the fight more than pretty much any other. In terms of difficulty, of the 4 Lord Souls, I'd say they're the second most difficult after Seath. Because Nito is pretty easy once you get past the skeletons, and the Bed of Chaos is a cheap piece of crap boss fight. But no, the Four Kings are really enjoyable, and especially if you've got a big weapon like a great hammer, or a club, a great axe, or even a halberd will do the trick, in my opinion. Just you know, smash them again, and again, and again, and again. And especially like with this weapon, the Dragon King Great Axe, it has that special attack that does boom, area attack. And it's so fun. And it's not really for story relevance that the Four Kings are on this list, again, just for the fight and the satisfaction, but I guess they are kind of related, in the sense that they were kind of the Abyssal Kings now, seeing as New Londo got infected. But yeah, and number 4, the Four Kings of New Londo. Okay, so we are now in the Big Three, and why do I call them that, you may ask? Well, it's simple. These are the bosses who end games, who end people's attempts at Dark Souls. That whole thing about giving up makes you hollow. These are the bosses that instill that. So let us begin with number 3, Manus, Father of the Abyss, the creature that basically founded the abyssal magic and basically spread it through Ulasil and New Londo, etc. Now, as you can see, he is extremely aggressive. He has a crap ton of health. I think around 6,000 regen in health, which is insane for this game. And he is also an avid wielder of abyssal magic. Now, the reason he is at number 3, not any higher, is because while he is extremely difficult and it takes a long time to get his pattern down to actually be able to beat him, is because the other 2 bosses on this list are A, more fun, and B, require different skills. With Manus, it is the standard dodge and attack pattern. Some of the other 2 bosses on this list require slightly different attacks to beat, but still, Manus is more than worthy of the number 3 spot, and I do hope that for any newbies who come into Dark Souls, you are well prepared for Manus, because as you see here, I'm in full heavy armour with great sword and great shield in hand. Aside from that, that's where Manus goes, number 3. Well, you all knew it was coming, so here it is, at number 2, Dragon Slayer Ornstein and Executioner Smough. Now, this is the runner-up, and these 2 bosses equate to one of the best boss fights in video game history. Everything about them screams perfection. The way the boss fight is dynamic, the way it can be done in 2 stages, of varying types. You can face Super Ornstein or Super Smough, and their just range of attack. Smough has his long reach clobbering hammer that does insane damage, and Ornstein has his lightning throw attacks and his spear, which can also equate to a wide variety of attacks, and all that combined equates to one of the best boss fights ever. And before I get into the end of it, just listen to the music. Everything about this boss fight is just wonderful. The pacing, the music, the action itself, the fight is challenging, one of the toughest in video game history as well. So with all these things combined, they are very worthy of number 2. But that leaves us with one more boss ahead. But anyway, before that, number 2, Dragon Slayer Ornstein and Executioner Smough. So here we are at the number 1 boss fight of Dark Souls. Artorias the Abyss Walker. Was there ever any doubt? But seriously, Artorias is most definitely the most challenging, engaging, story-relevant, dynamic, intricate, interesting boss of the entire game. And I don't even know if you could possibly dispute that, because he is related by proxy to characters like Manus, because of the Abyss. He's related to the 4 Kings, because he was trying to stop the Abyss from even spreading after that horrible incident. His dog is Sif, obviously, and he is one of the 4 Knights of Anor Londo. So he is... And everyone's been mentioning him, talking about, did you happen across Knight Artorias, for instance? And he is just everywhere. But there are so many more intricate things to him than that, because from the box art, he holds his sword in his left hand, but his left arm is broken, as you can see. So even with his bad arm, he is still an incredible fighter with incredible skills and power. Because, I mean, really, the only way you can describe him is he's like a sort of heavy ninja, because he basically is tougher than most of the early game bosses in the entire game, yet he moves with the speed of like a man possessed kind of thing, and he's just so amazing to fight. And the thing is, even if you master, like on one attempt, even if you get further with him that time, he is so dynamic that the next fight will not be the same. And so for every attempt you make at him, you make him more interesting because you discover more about him and his patterns that seem to go on forever. And he is the bane of many speedrunners. So you can tell even just by that statement that he is well worth the #1 place. So there you go, my #1 boss for Dark Souls is Artorias. So that was my top 10 bosses for Dark Souls. I hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Goodbye.